All right. So, as I said, we're going to talk about expanding your creativity. So, in order to have a thriving, very successful career, as a whether it is going to be a graphic designer or web designer, you really think about it. You need the right set of skills. Would you agree? You really need those a specific set of skills that employers look for. Um, when you're all applying, and that's your goal. But when you're applying for design jobs, it really there's more to it, or it takes more than just simply um, this artistic eye, right? Or it takes more than a degree to really impress that potential employer or even a client if you're freelancing. So there are a lot of things that we've discussed throughout the course. That would be from soft skills like standing out through professional communication. Um, we have creativity, problem solving, etc. Typography. Um, and even just a basic understanding of coding is all going to help you get that edge in today's job market. And we're all, as we graduate, you're all going to be trained to really be a candidate for an entry-level graphic design, right? That's a junior graphic designer. And as we've talked about throughout the course, that designers are problem solvers, right? In other words, we create, we employ type, images, and all these other design elements that we've talked about, design concepts that we've talked about to help communicate our ideas effectively, right? That could be through an advertisement, packaging, the user interface that we've created with this XD project, and the list goes on and on. So a junior designer, or a job as for a junior designer, it's really an entry-level position. Means it's aimed at designers that have somewhere between 0 and 3 years of design experience, right? So you have everyone coming out of school the majority has 0 design experience. So again, that's what as the school, we're training you to become, to be qualified for that entry-level position. So at that level, as an entry-level designer, boy, it's really a golden opportunity to learn so much, because you get to work closely under the supervision of a more, a senior designer, who, helps provide mentoring, helps you learn the ropes in the design industry. So as a junior designer, your basic qualifications would be, number one, creativity, software knowledge. Definitely, we have to have that basic skill, basic understanding of the software applications such as XD, right? InDesign, Illustrator, Photoshop. Adaptability would be another skill. So again, in order to have a thriving and very successful career as a designer, you need the right set of skill sets. So let's look at, I've just kind of narrowed this down to 6 qualities that employers look for in a junior or entry-level designer. I want to get you to start thinking about this. Number one, there's creativity. And I would say creativity is, it's one of, if not the most important skill for graphic designers, hands down. The first thing that potential employers and clients look for when they are selecting or when they're weeding out that ideal candidate, is the kind of design that they can do, that they can exhibit to them, that what is demonstrated in their portfolio pieces, correct? Something that's going to leave a lasting impression. So whether that would be for a logo or maybe a web design project, a redesign project, something that's using XD, for example. So having a visual eye is really, it's essential no matter what medium you're working for, whether it's in print or whether it's web. It all applies. Putting your clients first is extremely important. Clients, just from my experience, and it's been over 30 years, want to work with someone who focuses on them, right? Who focuses on the project, their objectives, and someone who responds well to suggestions. That is one exercise that I wanted everyone to practice. As I said at the beginning, I'm going to kind of, let you get your feet wet, because I was acting as your client. You have to think about or think of every design project as a collaboration, meaning you're taking your client's ideas, their project goals, their vision, and then you combine them with your own ideas in order to produce this end result that is going to meet the client's goals and objectives. Which means along the way, revisions are going to be necessary. Right? It helps you as the designer, it helps the client focus on the end result, how the project should be designed. So it's very important that understanding what a client wants from their design is going to be key. It's going to be a critical factor for you, the designer, to create a successful end result. One thing that, unfortunately in today's digital age, everyone's really individually focused on phones, electronic devices. A lot of people don't really understand how to talk to clients. They think that it can always be done through email, which is not, unfortunately, that's not the case. You have to be able to communicate with that client, your employer, very, on a regular basis. You have to be able to listen very well. You have to, through feedback, for example, meaning you have to process, you have to analyze the feedback. You have to be able to explain your design decisions for each stage of the project, because that's all going to give you this huge, it's going to give you a big advantage. So as you can see, we've talked about this. This is one of the things I talked about back in week 1, that communication skills rate very highly in the design industry. After all, you think about it, you could be a brilliant designer, but it's not much use if you can't explain your design decisions to your employer or clients. Would you agree? Most definitely. What about meeting deadlines? Always meeting deadlines. And this should go without saying, but meeting your deadlines is crucial. I'll tell you, graphic design is a fast-paced field. So as a designer, having the ability to juggle multiple projects and really be flexible with your workflow is going to kind of help you rise to the head of the pack, if you think about it. Because, clients like working, employers like working with someone they can count on, someone who is dependable, someone that they know is going to meet the deadlines, whether they're weekly deadlines, whether they're every other week, whatever the case may be, but they want someone who's dependable. And unfortunately, there's a small number of things that you can do that's going to completely ruin your relationship with your employer or your client, and that is missing deadlines. So as a professional designer, or listen, as a student who's training to be a professional designer, you really want to avoid practices that could hurt, your career or even the company that you work for. And missing deadlines is really, you might not think it's that bad, but it's really bad. And a lot of times as just beginning designers, or just sometimes even as a student, and I've been guilty of this, but I kind of, we often think to ourselves as, oh, come on, what's the big deal if I don't get this project submitted by the deadline tonight, or even first thing tomorrow? You know why? Because I'm going to polish it up tonight or first thing in the morning. It's going to be worth the wait. But if you think about it, clients have strict deadlines that they must meet. And when a designer disregards those deadlines, unfortunately, it throws the entire scheduling of that project offline. It doesn't, it's a domino effect. It doesn't just affect the client, it affects everyone. And it can lead to, boy, some really expensive end results on that. So, you know, clients, employers really want, again, people that are dependable. If designers are hired, if you're hired and you always are missing deadlines, that kind of sends the wrong message. That kind of says that, hey, this designer doesn't really care if their career is going to go anywhere. And unfortunately, that means lost job opportunities. And if you are freelancing, that means you are one and done. You lose that client. So that's something we don't want to, fall into that habit. So we always, again, the school, each course provides a great opportunity to improve some of these skills that we're talking about. What about attention to detail, which is so important? We talked about that last week. We talked about, everyone makes mistakes, but the finished product or the project that you are presenting to the employer, to your client, really, it has to be error-free. One thing we talked about last week, that projects are only considered done, complete, when there are zero mistakes, right? When zero mistakes are found. So that means it's very important that you double check accuracy. You follow the project instructions. That means you would, let's just go back to our XD project. You would use only the imagery that was given to you by the client. You would use only the text that was given to you by the client. You wouldn't substitute a homepage photo when they had given you one, for example. So that's very, very important. And employers definitely look for designers who have great, not just okay, but great attention to detail skills. So our week 4 assignment also gives us an opportunity to work on attention to detail, because it's also in part of the rubric too, as we pointed out, on attention to detail. Spelling, for example, is attention to detail. So attention to detail is very, very important. We all want to achieve a portfolio that has that wow factor. Right, so we have to put together a portfolio that shows off the best of our work. We've talked about this before, that a potential employer can really see your skill set, your basic understanding of the software app that you used to create that project. They can see your technical skills, a number of different things, just by looking at a PDF, believe it or not. And since you're trying to find work, that means presenting your work is really, it's at the top of the line, right? It's that important part of meeting with that potential employer or even a client if you're freelancing. So therefore, we want to include work that demonstrates your ability to produce results. They can also look at get an understanding of, for example, some of the concepts. How do your understanding of principles of design, for example, your critical thinking skills to solve the problem at hand. The PDF can also show that as well. So, you think design isn't like other jobs. That's what makes it so unique. But in order to be any good at it, you really have to put in your time. And so, for an experienced designer, that's typically reflected in their portfolios. But as a novice designer, someone coming out of school, you haven't had time to really cultivate this solid body of work. But you can still have very good portfolio projects. But one thing that a PDF cannot show is time management. It doesn't show how long it took you to do this project. So that's why a lot of times that a beginning designer or entry-level designer is hired on, they tend to be a bit of a gamble. So they're hired on a hunch. I can see your skills, but there are still some things that haven't been answered. And so you think about it, once you get in the door, that's really when the interview begins, right? So now you have to prove to your employer that you're worth the investment that they're making in you, right? Your, time management skills, or do you put the clients first, etc. So that means, again, that's why these are so important. You have to back up what they suspect, why they hired you, why were you a good hire. Because I'll tell you one thing, that is, if you're not absolutely committed to your career, your employer is guaranteed they're going to come to the same conclusion that they shouldn't be dedicated either. So, meeting deadlines, etc. Again, meeting the, if you go back to and take this class, for example, or any of your classes, do you think that meeting the weekly deadlines is preparing you for a real world design experience? Most definitely it is. I can tell you from experience, when you first start, you're only going to have one project to sign, but the more experience you get, you're going to have more. There's been many times I've had 10 projects on my desk. Some of them, there may be 5 of them that have hard deadlines that are due that same week. Different days of the week, of course. But again, you have to be able to manage those deadlines very, very successfully. So again, the more experience you get, you also get more creative projects, which is a lot of fun. So, we're all working towards graduating with a very, very strong portfolio. So, some of the things that we've talked about: missing deadlines, not watching the recorded live sessions, maybe not following project instructions. Would you say that affects portfolio pieces? Maybe even affects craftsmanship of that project? Most definitely it does. So let me throw this question out to you. I want you to all think about it. If you had to get hired based on the quality of one piece alone, could you do it? Whether it is the XD project, whether it's a magazine layout, a packaging project, you should be asking yourself this question every course, every project. If I had to get hired based on the quality of this one piece that I'm starting, could I do it? And right now, the most likely answer is going to be no. So how do you solve that problem? Well, feedback could identify areas that you need to improve upon. Maybe I'm not understanding principles of design as well. Maybe I don't understand Illustrator as well as I should, or InDesign, or whatever the case may be. But that's ways you start to solve this problem. So keep that in mind. What about technical skills? Very, very important. Just having a basic understanding of this broad range of design skill sets definitely going to help ensure that you are, as a designer, you're prepared to take on, a broad range of projects. The more technical skills you have, that makes you better qualified to take on more projects. Would you agree? Which means you have to keep up to date on the software. You all learned a new software, XD. So this would provide an opportunity for you to identify areas that maybe I need to, I just don't want to take this for I had it for 30 days, but what are some areas I don't really understand? Well, then you make a note so you can improve on those. So you want to keep up to date. You want to improve on, learning the apps, layout skills, techniques, concepts that we've talked about. And it's really important that you have the ability to build both print and digital files. Right? That's very, very key, because a lot of times clients are going to require a project that includes both components. It's very common. What about coding? Is that something? You don't need to be an expert on coding, but you should at least have a basic understanding of HTML, because that's very, very important. Because it kind of teaches you how to understand what goes into creating a website, and it makes you even more marketable. That's the cool thing right there. So how can How can learning XD play a role in your career as a designer? Can it? What do you think? Could it play a role? Most definitely it could. Um, you know, and the reason is because, you know, the design industry is really becoming more focused on digital. And really, they become very focused on that user experience. Remember, that was one thing we were trying to achieve with our XD project, that user experience, right? So that user experience design is becoming more and more important, right? So just designing the part that, you know, of a product, say for, you know, the user interface, for example, that people interact with, definitely it is increasing in demand, you know, among employers, which means the cool things happening there. That creates a need or a niche for people with user interface design skills, right? So who can put themselves in the shoes of the user, which is, again, something we were doing this course. So XD is a wonderful app for this because, you know, you look at our project that we just did, we designed it with the end user in mind, right? Our goal was to create an engaging user experience. So the role of a UX designer would be to take every opportunity to enhance that user's enjoyment of visiting a website. Would you agree? Not just visually, but also intuitively, right? What I mean by that is, we've talked about that, is you remove obstacles that prevents them from, you know, that prevents this engaging user experience, right? We have to make it a very pleasing, engaging user experience for them. Make it easy for them to accomplish their goal. Remember, we've talked about that they have an end, you know, that user has a goal in mind when they visit the site. So this project that we just wrapped up was a great introduction to UX design. So what were some of the features? I'm just curious, what were some of the features that really stand out to you? Do you have anything that you really liked? I liked one of my favorite ones. Yeah, the repeat grid. That's fantastic, isn't it? That's definitely one of the XD's best features, and you could really say it's a time-saving tool. And as we found out, that the repeat grid lets you, you know, select a design element, or we could group elements together, and then we replicate them as many times as you want. And the cool thing happens is that it keeps all your styles and the spacing intact. Right, so if you select an element or a group of elements, you can click on the repeat grid and in the properties panel, and then we just drag it, and it's fantastic. We could also, what about spacing, changing the spacing in between? Did you find that useful? When we had, there was spacing in between. So if I just created let's just add some color in here. And if I did a repeat grid, the spacing, this was great, wasn't it? Where you could just adjust that spacing and then it's automatic. And that also strengthened repetition, but kept proximity together. So I thought that was really cool. So we could just drag and change the amount of space between all these objects. You know, you can edit these objects too. I don't know if you tried this, but I can edit this one. Let's just take this border here, and let's just put something like this. Look at that, how it changed them all. It changes them all. We'll make it even a little bit more. That's kind of cool. If I wanted to change the bottom here, look at that. So look how it changes them all. Everything is changed. If I want to change one color here, it's going to change them all. Look at that. That's awesome. So other features where you could drag multiple images. You know, if I had all 4 images, I could drag them into here and it just drop them. So my 4 images for my services, I could just select all 4, hit this one, and it'd populate them. That's really cool. So another thing I really liked was that I think is really, it's unique, is the different artboards. What do you think, Donta, about the different artboards? You know, it doesn't matter if you're working with a dozen artboards. You know, we had 10 artboards, something simple, or you had 100 artboards. The cool thing is we customize the artboards for any device, which was, and we don't have, I mean, we're not customizing them, XD does, right? We can, over here, look at all these different sizes, predefined for us. One click of the mouse, we add it. There it is. So that was really cool. In my opinion, I really thought that was another great feature. So another thing I liked about the artboards was you could copy between them, right? I could copy, just for example, you know, if I wanted to add a square right here, and we'll just change that to something like red, and I wanted to copy it, and I hit all these, I select all my artboards or just 2 artboards, and whoops, wrong one here. Let's select this. I copy it. Let's put that one on there. Look at that. I can select this one. I can select this one. And it puts them in the position, exact position. So that was another cool feature of the artboards that I thought was, you know, really was a huge time saver. What about any of the, some of the UI kits? They had some really cool things you could do with those, correct? Some of those UI kits where they had some of the interfaces already designed for you. You just maybe had to modify them a little bit. That was something I really liked. What about, before we added the interactivity, did the assets panel, did that help a lot? Do you think that was a time saver? In my opinion, it is. It enabled us to work faster and stay organized, definitely. You know, because we could store the colors. Yeah, you're able to edit faster. We can store character styles, symbols. All of them can be, again, they allow you to work faster, stay organized. The cool thing about the character styles was it allowed us to format our text consistently. You know, remember, character styles are the equivalent of a paragraph style in InDesign, Illustrator, or Photoshop. But it was really helpful because when our text attributes needed to be updated across each screen, say, for example, for the website, I could make the change to the character style and it would update everywhere that character style was applied, which was awesome, a very big time saver. So it also helped us to maintain a consistent design across all the devices. Right, how do we keep colors consistent in our project? The assets panel, again, is the tool for us. So we could save, we could create the colors, which was pretty simple, wasn't it? But we saved the colors into the assets panel, and it was useful for several reasons. And one of the reasons was we were able to maintain color accuracy, maintain consistency. We could strengthen principles of design. I think contrast and repetition. What about symbols? Did you like symbols? Was that easy? What do you think? Could you see an advantage to symbols? Almost definitely. So we could take a button, for example. And one of the advantages of us creating a symbol is that, remember, the symbol it's an object that we can reuse multiple times across all these different artboards. And the cool feature is that any changes I make to the symbol is reflected everywhere else. It's being used in the design. So if I wanted to change the color of this one. You can see they're all applied here. I just change one, right? I just change one and it updates them everywhere, which is really cool. Another time saver. So we just make the change once and all the instances are updated throughout the entire design. Another cool thing I really liked was the interactivity. What did you think about that, Donta? Was that easy? You could go from static, here's our static design, which we're in the design. Remember, that's what XD is, design, prototype, share. And then we go to prototype. So we take our comp, our static design, and we go from just static to interactive in a matter of minutes. It was way cool, right? The thing I liked about it was so easy was that we could actually, select any button that we wanted and we just drag out the trigger and take it to the next page. Also over here, which I didn't go over, I just wanted you to focus on this, but here's something else you can do. This gives you some different animations. You can slide it left, it dissolves, it can slide down, it can slide over. So you can always, change these for the little animation. So it could bounce when it moves, which could be a distraction. It also has a duration, how long you want it to go, right? I mean, I would try and avoid something like 1 second because that could take forever, but you may also need to increase the duration depending on the type of animation you've added in here. But so some other more advanced features on the interactivity, which is really cool. But again, we could, we add the interactivity and then it helps us to test the experience. And the cool thing about that was that we could connect all these devices together, which means we didn't have to jump back and forth between, making 3 different videos or 3 different files for this. So that was really, really cool. It was, in my opinion, it's another outstanding feature of XD. So that was, again, and it had so many other cool features. It was, what do you think about the learning curve? Was it easier than, say, for example, InDesign or even Photoshop or Illustrator? In my opinion, it is, hands down, it's much easier to learn. So, but again, one thing is, I understand everyone, you learn a new software app and you're just, you're going to get stuck. It can be frustrating. Part of that could be resolved by watching the recorded sessions. A number of different things that would contribute to frustration, but it does happen to everyone. So you have to approach it in a very positive fashion, meaning you apply tactics, part of a plan that you have that's going to minimize the time you are, that you spend being stuck. One solution would be to go watch a recorded short, 20-minute, 10-minute, whatever the case may be, video. A lot of times something that you think should be relatively simple and straightforward sometimes results in hours spent trying to figure it out. You're just trying to figure out why it just doesn't work. But unfortunately, that's just part of this line of work. You also have to keep in mind, and this is something I talked about from day one, that creativity is allowing yourself to make mistakes. There's making mistakes, and then there's, which is part of learning, but also you have to think about why the recorded sessions are so important. That's part of the learning process too. So making mistakes because of not watching something, or something that could be easily resolved by, a problem that could be easily resolved by watching a video, is really not, you're not allowing yourself to make mistakes. You are causing yourself to make mistakes. So there's two different ways that you have to look at that. So you want to minimize how much time you allow yourself to spend on trying to get unblocked. Go back to those recorded videos, right? That's why we go over the concepts, the techniques. They've all helped. So You know, we create the website, we had the mobile app, we had the tablet using XD. It was really, if you think about it, it's really just a question of making design decisions, right? How does the user experience work? What elements are needed? What, you know, I need to make this as intuitive as possible. As I said from the very first live session we had, that this was going to be a golden opportunity to work on improve critical thinking skills, problem solving skills. What do you think? Was that true, Donta? Did it give you do you feel it gave you an opportunity to work on critical thinking skills and improve your problem solving skills? Most definitely it did, yeah. So this was an ideal project for that. You know, and then as I talked about also in week 1, I was going to show everyone how it went to a simple drag and drop template, right? We just drag, we drop elements around. It really is lightning fast, and it's really a fun program to use. I really think that you know, boy, it does really have a lot of. It will help you with, you know, those extra design skills that you need to qualify for that entry-level position as a junior designer. All right. So all in all, did you all notice on apps that they don't have their logos on each page like the website? What was the purpose of putting the logo on each website, on each page for this project? How did that help you with thinking about principles of design? For branding, yes, but also if you go back to principles of design, and principles of design, as we know, are so important. They're the foundation for everything you do. How does that get you to think about principles of design, as in repetition, right? It's a repetitive design element. Does it get you to start thinking more about application of principles of design? So it did accomplish a goal. So it also helped with defining visual hierarchy. True. It shouldn't be the largest element on the page, so it got you to be thinking about your design decisions as well. So it's all problem solving. So everything I did had a specific reason that would help you improve, you know, design skills. It would help you improve your problem solving, thinking about defining visual hierarchy to achieve that focal point. How can the principles of design be used to prioritize and organize these design elements? So that would be the reason behind that. So before you can start thinking, you know, about neglecting things or not putting things on, or, you know, everything has a reason in the design industry, but you really have to have the understanding, that solid understanding of just the basic foundation before you can venture out and start modifying that or breaking away from that, correct? You have to understand the rules before you can break the rules, is what, let's just put it that way. So yeah. All right, so with that being said, let's move on. I'm going to stop this video and we're going to move on.